Imagine loving someone so deeply that you're willing to give up the one thing you value most just to make them smile. Today, you're going to learn English through a beautiful short story called The Gift of the Magi that will not only touch your heart, but also help you understand real, natural English clearly, step by step. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you won't just understand the message, you'll feel it. Listen carefully and enjoy the story. Della finished counting her money for the third time and sighed deeply. $1.87. That was all she had, and 60 cents of it was in small coins, saved one by one from careful spending and small sacrifices. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day. She sat quietly by the window, her thoughts heavy and restless. Outside, the world seemed alive with celebration, people hurrying along the streets, shops filled with bright decorations, and laughter carried in the cold air. But inside her small apartment, there was only silence. Della leaned her head gently against the window and allowed herself a moment of sadness. She loved her husband Jim more than anything in the world, and yet, with so little money, she had nothing worthy to give him for Christmas. That thought hurt her more than anything else. Suddenly, she stood up and walked toward the mirror. She looked at her reflection carefully. Her long, beautiful hair fell freely down her back, shining softly in the light. It was thick, smooth, and full of life, her greatest pride and most valuable possession. For a moment, she hesitated. Then slowly, an idea began to form. Her heart started to beat faster. Without giving herself time to change her mind, she quickly put on her coat, grabbed her hat, and hurried out into the cold street. She walked quickly, almost running, until she reached a small shop. Above the door, a simple sign read, "Hair Bought." Della paused for a second, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. A woman stood behind the counter, watching her with calm, experienced eyes. "Will you buy my hair?" Della asked, her voice steady but soft. The woman stepped closer, examining Della's hair carefully. "Yes," she replied, "I will give you $20. Without hesitation, Della agreed. Within minutes, her long, beautiful hair was gone. She felt lighter, but also strangely exposed, as if a part of her had disappeared. But there was no time to think about that. Now she had money. Clutching it tightly in her hand, she rushed back into the busy streets, determined to find the perfect gift for Jim. She visited many shops, searching carefully, rejecting one item after another. Nothing seemed good enough. Nothing seemed right. Then, at last, she found it. It was a simple, elegant watch chain, made of fine metal, smooth and strong, without unnecessary decoration. It was quiet, refined, and perfectly suited to Jim's personality. Jim owned a beautiful watch, a family treasure, but he used an old, worn-out strap to hold it. This chain would make it complete. Della smiled for the first time that day. She bought the chain without hesitation. That evening, she returned home and sat quietly, waiting for Jim. As she waited, she began to feel nervous. She looked at herself again in the mirror. Without her long hair, her face looked different, smaller, softer. "Will he still think I am beautiful?" she wondered. She tried to fix her hair as best as she could, but it remained short and uneven. Soon she heard footsteps outside. The door opened, and Jim walked in. He closed the door slowly, then looked at Della, and stopped. He said nothing. His eyes stayed fixed on her, not with anger, not even with surprise, but with something she could not understand. Della stepped forward quickly. "Jim, please don't look at me like that. I had my hair cut and sold it. I couldn't live through Christmas without giving you a gift. It will grow back, I promise." Jim still did not speak. He simply reached into his coat pocket and took out a small package. "He brought you something," he said quietly. Della took the package with trembling hands and opened it. Inside were beautiful combs, delicate, carefully made, and exactly the kind she had admired for so long. She had seen them once in a shop window and had dreamed of owning them. But now her hair was gone. For a moment she could not speak. Then she smiled, even as her tears filled her eyes. "They're beautiful, Jim," she said softly. "My hair will grow again." Then, remembering her own gift, she quickly handed him the chain. "I bought this for you. Now your watch will look perfect." Jim looked at the chain, then smiled gently. He sat down and shook his head slightly. "Della," he said, "I sold my watch to buy your combs." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, they both began to laugh. It was not laughter of regret or sadness, but something deeper. They had both given up their most valuable possessions just to make each other happy. These two were not rich in money, but they were rich in love. And in that moment, they understood something important. The greatest gifts are not measured by their price, but by the sacrifice behind them. And so, Jim and Della, till they had lost their most treasured possessions, discovered something far more valuable, the true meaning of love. Because sometimes the greatest gifts are not wrapped in paper, but in sacrifice, understanding, and selflessness. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring English stories. And remember, the simplest acts of love are often the most powerful.